Right, so this is my review, my rather late review of Usyk-Joshua, the rematch. I'm sure all of us saw what happened. Usyk managed to, on the judges' scorecards at least, eke out a split decision. I predicted that Usyk would get a stoppage in the fight. He definitely struggled a little bit more than I thought, whether that was down to underperformance or down to Joshua just making some very good adjustments. To be honest, I think it was a little bit of both, but mainly Joshua's adjustments. But it was not enough for him, at least. And to be honest, I was surprised that with the efforts he made, and with the fact that Glenn Feldman scored the fight for Joshua, I was surprised that the other British judge, Steve Gray, didn't score the fight for Joshua, because, well, we know how British judges tend to be. I mean, I thought it was a bit bizarre that they were, and that's what they oftentimes do with these situations. They get one neutral judge and two judges, from the fighter's home country, which I just don't really understand, as opposed to just grabbing three neutral judges, because that still obviously leaves room for bias. And and even if the right man gets the decision, it does still manipulate the result, whether it be a majority or split decision. So I don't really understand why they do that, but ultimately it didn't matter in the end, besides the method of decision by which Usyk won. Now, how did the fight play out? I'll just get into my scoring real quickly. Round 1, Usyk. Close round. Joshua landed good. I thought he got off to a good start. I thought he lost the round, but I thought he showed the right signs. He was landing heavy. He was authoritative in exchanges. And he was not particularly reactive to Usyk's feints. He wasn't budging. He was, getting hit. He was getting pieced with some good shots, but he was defending himself relatively well. I thought his tight guard helped to at least neutralize the impact of some of Usyk's shots, and I thought his tight guard also incentivized Usyk's volume, which therefore created more openings for Joshua to land counters, specifically to the body, and I think that really helped him throughout the fight. But yeah, round 1 I gave to Usyk, but rounds 2 and 3, round 2 was a clear Joshua round. Round 3 was a swing. I think I originally gave it to Usyk, but I think it could have went either way. But as the middle rounds came in, Usyk basically just went straight to work. He made the adjustments. He started putting his punches together. The first round he was rather inactive, kind of pot-shotting him, but putting together some combinations. But in the middle rounds, it was back to World Boxing Super Series Usyk. And what I mean by that is the difference between World Boxing Super Series Usyk and the Usyk that fought Joshua the first time around is that World Boxing Super Series Usyk, what we saw from him at cruiserweight was he would just dissect opponents with pretty much everything in his arsenal, whether it be his foot speed, his constant hand feints, his constant volume, how he's occupying your guard, varying the manner in which he commits to basically all of his shots, his upper body movement, feinting with the means of weight transition. He was just, he pretty much brought that back in this fight, as opposed to the first fight where he was actually incentivizing pot-shotting. He was looking to pot-shot with Joshua. I guess largely because he didn't want to open up as much. He definitely did look a little bit cautious early in the Joshua fight after he landed that first straight left hand. But back into this fight, now that he had felt the power previously and recognized that he could take it, and did take some heavy blows early in the fight, he started to get more confident, and he was throwing shots with bad intent. He was doubling, tripling up on the jab. He was piercing through Joshua's guard. He would use the double jab to feint Joshua into the position, or should I say feint Joshua out of position. He would use his triple jab to pierce through the guard, to then get the straight left hand off. Or he would do it just with a double jab. He'd feint one jab to feint him out of position. He'd come back with the second jab to pierce through the guard, and then he'd follow up with the straight left. He started to land the overhand left hook. He started to land the right hook to the body. He was definitely throwing some nice straight lefts to the body, you know, similarly to the first fight. But Joshua, man, his body work in this fight was definitely more effective than I thought it would be. No, I'm not saying that body work wasn't going to be effective for Joshua in this fight, but I felt that defensively, he would leave a lot of openings trying to go to the body. And considering how Robert Garcia's fighters tend to fight, they do like to go to the body in combination. So Joshua attempting the same thing in this fight, especially with the limited time of preparation that he had with Robert, which is about 3 months. I was unsure about how that would work, but it worked pretty well in the fight. And he was landing some mean body shots, visibly buzzing Usyk with them. And even though he was losing the middle rounds, they definitely started to pay dividends near the end. Now, Joshua hadn't been throwing much to that point and decided that in about round 8, as his corner was starting to increase the urgency for which they wanted Joshua to approach these subsequent rounds, they decided effectively, or should I say, Joshua decided effectively, he wanted to basically go for broke. Around the 8th round, he started to increase his volume, landed hooks over the top of Usyk's guard. Usyk was slowing down. He definitely had expended a lot of energy. I could really see from about round 6 that he was not feinting nearly as much. He was definitely a little bit more reactive to Joshua. He was standing in the pocket. He wasn't just pivoting and circling around him. He was standing right in the pocket with Joshua and just looking to pot shot him, similarly to the first fight. But he definitely started to tire around that point, and Joshua started to pile on the body shots. He started to buzz Usyk with some good straight right hands. And in round 9, he landed a good straight right hand, had Usyk in trouble for most of the round. Now, I think a lot of people are trying to read into the round. A lot of people are saying that he was on the verge of getting stopped. I mean, you know, certain refs, I guess, might have, tried to step in. Steve Gray. Then you have, say, other people who don't think Usyk was hurt at all. He was. He was definitely hurt. He was shelling up and he was not throwing back. And I saw the shot in which Joshua did hurt him. And what I do think, though, Usyk was doing extremely well in that sequence was his defense. Those follow-up shots that Joshua was trying to come back with and trying to effectively use as a proverbial nail in the coffin were ineffective. He was not able to land anything significant, at least, for about the last minute of the round. He landed a good body shot, I think, but for the most part, Usyk was just blocking and deflecting most of what Joshua was trying to come back with. So, Usyk basically took that, carried that over into the next round, with Joshua, who had made that same mistake before against Andy Ruiz, against Vladimir Klitschko in that 5th round where he floored him, and then proceeded to get tired and get pieced up himself in the remainder of that round. And he went into the 10th round, stood directly in the pocket with Joshua, probably caught him off guard because Joshua was not willing to exchange, or Joshua was tired, and he started to piece him up. Now, I haven't seen the fight since, but what I'll basically say is, with a combination of shots, with the foot speed starting to come back, he basically caught a bit of a second wind. Parlayed with Joshua tiring himself and punching himself out, and he battered Joshua in the 10th round. That round was one-sided in Usyk's favor. Joshua, I think around the minute mark, landed a very nice straight right hand and forced Usyk to hold, had him momentarily stunned, and then Usyk just went right back to work and began to stun him multiple times as the round began to close. he was starting to use his right hook. He was starting to pin Joshua's guard down, and when Joshua would attempt to clinch, which is a weakness in his game, for sure, Usyk began to push Joshua off. He began to use Joshua's leaning tactics against him, and he really poured it on him. The 11th round was not necessarily an extension of the 10th, but it was, I'd say, more like the middle rounds of the fight. Joshua would come in and land some good shots here and there, but nothing sustained, and Usyk would just, for the most part, outwork him. Was using his angles, using his footwork, using his head movement to slip Joshua's lead hand. He was taking lead hand control, and he was able to get in his combinations, not necessarily oftentimes with full force, because I do think he was wary of the power still by that point. But he was looking to basically just piece Joshua apart, score as many points as possible, and take, it home to the finish line. 12th round, more or less the same. And that closed the fight out. I had the fight 8-4, 9-3-ish in favor of Oleksandr Usyk. I think I had it 9-3, but I could see 8-4. And at a stretch, I could see 7-5, but that's about as far as I could go. In terms of scoring, this really wasn't a different fight. It was a fight where Joshua's highlights were definitely far more pronounced, and Usyk was definitely put under more physical duress. However, the fights closed almost the same way. I mean, Usyk is someone who has incredible, not only willpower, but, at this point, or should I say, not only has incredible stamina, but does have incredible willpower. That kind of Ali type of a spirit about him. How down the stretch in his career, he would be dead tired near the end of fights, but he would just keep pushing because of his just spirit and his will. And his just determination, plus his superior stamina, was just able to guide him home to the finish line. He won the last 3 rounds in dominant fashion. The first fight, he won the last 4 or so rounds in dominant fashion. But as we see, as usual, Joshua makes the most of those, or Usyk, should I say, makes the most of those late rounds. He did come on strong down the stretch against Machunu, against Briedis. Gassiev, he was basically coasting to the finish line. Tony Bellew, who broke him down and stopped him late. Blavatsky, he had him figured out and was outboxing him soundly down the stretch. It's all of these fights, every single last one of these fights, he's just coming on strong down the stretch. Not only a testament to his stamina, but just also his ability to adjust. He is, in my view, the pound-for-pound best fighter in the sport, Usyk. I don't really have an objection to someone who would potentially have Naoya and Inoue above him, because it's a subjective ranking. And I won't necessarily disagree that Inoue has been looking a bit more impressive in terms of aesthetically in the ring, and especially his physical condition at this point, because Usyk is 35 and starting to age. But, man, he is just... the dude consistently shows up. Even when he's on his C game, he's incredibly difficult to defeat, because he's just someone who is so used. He's just a master of winning 12-round fights. He's not someone who's necessarily going to just go round by round trying to bank in rounds. He's someone who's going to beat you over 12. He's going to win by any means necessary. He's going to, even if he's losing rounds, he's going to keep setting up decoys, and he's going to keep looking to break his opponent down. He's just a tremendous fighter. The dude is going to be 36 probably by the next time he fights. So you can't expect him to get much better from here. But obviously the fight he's looking for at this point is the Fury Undisputed fight. That fight's a bit hard to call. I feel like I know who I'm picking for the fight, though. I will not reveal that for now. But for me, it is interesting because I don't really have a firm grasp of where both guys are at in comparison to one another. Because Usyk is not quite the fighter he was at cruiserweight at heavyweight, but he's still arguably the best in the division. Fury is someone who's built up a reputation at heavyweight, has fought the elite guys in the division and won. But let's be honest, he hasn't been the most active. And, I mean, let's be real, he hasn't fought a great variance of styles at the top level. He's fought mostly, well, pretty much exclusively orthodox fighters at the top level. And those guys don't really put combination punches together in the way Usyk does. They're very straightforward. He's someone who has found it relatively easy to pin guys like Klitschko down and Wilder and Dillian White because of the fact of their lack of mobility. And also, let's be honest, compared to the Fury that fought against Klitschko, in my opinion, this version is not as fast. So, I don't know, it's definitely a very interesting fight. I'm not going to reveal who I'm picking, but it is very interesting. Usyk, what really more is there to say? He's an all-time great fighter. Joshua definitely did have his moment near the end of the fight, at the end of the fight, after the fight, where he basically spazzed out on the microphone. Was he definitely a bit classless? Yeah, tossing those belts out of the ring. But to an extent, I kind of have to feel a sense of empathy. Because, look, I've never been in that position before, where I have been at the top of a profession, reaching close to the mountaintop. I've had millions of people watching, scrutinizing, and analyzing me. I have millions of dollars potentially on the table if I win, and I fall short. Potentially expecting that maybe I receive the benefit of the doubt in a fight like this, because potentially politics could have played a factor and helped Joshua, but they didn't save him in the end, even though they came relatively close to doing so. And look, Joshua can come back from this, but looking at what he's lost out on, and the fact that he will probably never be seen as a major rival to the guy who he has been seen as a big rival to in the past, in Fury, moving forward, that definitely has got to hurt. Now, once again, do I condone what he did in terms of tossing the belts out the ring? No. But to a certain extent, I'm not going to judge him too greatly. I have to empathize. Also, let's consider the fact that he's been PR trained. He's been someone who has had to, let's be real, largely suppress his original thoughts, his emotion from the public. Tyson Fury is not someone who has received major endorsement deals from the beginning of his career. So he has not been put in a position to where he has to censor himself or filter his statements, while Joshua has. And now, even though he's lost, even though he's been through a lot in this profession, through his career, that's still the expectation for him. So you have to imagine that that pressure has probably gotten to him to some extent. And pressure bursts pipes, so to a certain extent, I don't condone what he did, but I can't really, I have to empathize with him to some extent. But, you know, I guess if Usyk is to manage a way to pull it off against Fury, I guess he can't feel too bad about it, because he lost to the best heavyweight in the world at that point. And, I mean, really, he should hold his head high, because he lost to the best fighter, period. So, yeah, that's it.